Hey, my name is Joe Zamboni. I'm founder and CEO at Avanti Studio, and I'm here today to talk about how to manage projects using GitHub. As you may know, GitHub is where developers share code, they help each other, everything happens inside GitHub. But we can also do Scrum or Agile project management inside of GitHub. The first thing that we're going to do is to create a repository. Let's say we have an application repository. Let's call app. Okay. Here we have a normal repository with the code that you're going to deploy. And besides the code, we'll have a project management tool. So if you're not familiar with this feature, the most basic feature that you can use is called issues. So you can come here and write an issue. We have other ways to do this, like templates of issues. They're very useful. Like you can create even forms here on how to generate issues. Okay, so we have an issue now. We can come here now, assign who is going to solve the problem. We can choose anyone of our team here. We can assign labels. And here's the first part. If we want to do project management on GitHub, the first thing that we need to do is label management. It will help us in the future. You're going to see that. So the first, you have a bunch of labels here. You can adapt what you want or not. But if you think about Scrum, the labels that you need to add is to classify your stories. So we normally will recommend you to create a label as a story. Let's not put red here. Let's put something different. And another one is an epic. Why these two? Because we know that sometimes when creating a project management using Scrum, you need to have at least the notion that you have stories that you'll be able to solve in a sprint. And the stories that will have other stories attached to them to be able to solve that problem. Maybe the story is too big. So we create those two kind of things. We like to also define something called spike. A spike normally is a story that the team doesn't know how to solve yet. Our recommendation that you shouldn't point or size the story. It's how much time we want as a team to solve that problem. And also, you should create an outcome. We will try to expend some time to find a solution. That's a spike. Then another label that we use is a bug. We point the stories, we don't point the epic, we point the spike, and we don't point bug. Why? Because a bug is not adding value to the team. The stories that are under the epic will add value to the team. The spike, we need to add knowledge to the team. And the bug, unfortunately, is something that will not add anything to the team. Okay? So now we have a basic label definition here and one ticket. But now let's go to see how can we manage projects. When you go to the organization, you have the tab projects. And here you have some templates that you can create and the original projects. Normally, we recommend you to create one project to the organization. The idea here is that you should have only one backlog across your team, or at least one project per team. But normally we do per organization. Then here we're going to create a project. In our case, we could select one of their templates, a team planning or a feature planning. We're going to start one from scratch, which in our case will be a table. And then we will call this Scrum. So there's not much here right now, but we're going to get there. Okay. When you start this or the Scrum project, we need to customize this thing, right? So the first thing that we're going to do is rename this first view here. Let's say all stories here. Later, the idea is that you're going to show your own stories here, which will be the first view that any person who opens the project will see. But for now, we can say all stories here. And then if you press sharp, you start to list repos, and then I can add a story here. Done. We have here issue inside a project that we call Scrum. Okay, you'll see the same fields here, and you see here there's no labels. So let's define the first label here as a story. That's our first story in our project. You see there's no status, there's nothing here. So there's no other fields here yet. So now let's go and customize the project until we get to Scrum project management here. Then we do go to settings. We can put a short description, a readme, transform this in a template, or clone the project. We can also manage the accent, things like that. But now we need to transform this in a Scrum. Normally, what we do in our project management, we classify the stories not in to-do, but first we need a backlog. Let's say we name a story as new. This is in backlog. I will not put a description here, but you can describe this as a new story without points. Then to-do, we could leave here. I normally also like to put cancel, because sometimes you cancel a story. You decide not to complete. Maybe the story will not add any value if you finish it. Decide to cancel. So we cancel the story. Those are the status of our sprint here, but you can do different ways. The second field that we wanted to create is the iterations field, which we will call sprints in our case. And that sprint, we tell when it's going to start. Let's say you're going to start. Normally we don't like to start sprints on Monday because of holidays. Here we have, let's say, we start on June 18 and do it 2 weeks. Okay, we save and you create. Now we see it's already defined here. Sprint 1, 2, 3. We have a sprint. We're almost getting what we need. Another thing that we need to create is new field, story points. And in this case, it will be a number. Our recommendation for story points is that you use Fibonacci. So the number starts with 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and 13, 21 maybe sometimes. Then the other fields that we need to create is one field called priority. So we have to define a priority. In this case, we will do priority. And let's say that we define priority as, let's say, critical, high, medium, and low. Let's put some colors here. Let's say it's red, high is orange, which should be the opposite, but that's fine. Medium is yellow, and green. Now, when we're talking about epics, normally they are related to a date or something that has to happen. So we define start date, which will be a date, and end date, which will also be a date. Okay. I think we're good in fields. We can go now and start to create views of our stories. So now we have a story here. We can say the status is new because we don't have any points. We can say that we'll run on the sprint 1. Then when we can say points will be 3. And is a story that is medium. When we add the points, we can say here that it's ready, it's to do. So it's ready. So here we have our first story. If you have the paid version, you can create actions. If you add story points to something, you can do an automation that will change it to be in to do or whatever name you want to use. Okay. So here we have our stories. Let's create a view. Well, of course, it's a board. We wanted to see the stories that are inside a sprint, which will be next sprint. We'll just have next sprint. So this view here we'll call next sprint. And we can save it here. And as you can see, we see this new here. The new is not something that we wanted to see when we are inside of a sprint, right? Because they're not supposed to be in a sprint if it's new. So you can hide from this view. And here, if you see here, there's a count. So this means that it's counting the number of stories, not the number of points. So you can change the field count to story points. Now we have the story points here on the next sprint. Okay. Imagine now that instead of next sprint, you wanted to see only your stories. Okay, so like now let's duplicate this view. And let's say I wanted to filter by assignee me. Okay, and then I do save. As you see, this story disappeared here because it's not assigned to anyone, which can also be a rule, right? Then if I assign to me, my face appear here, and I have my view for the next sprint. So my stories for next sprint, right? So I already have. And now what if I wanted to do like my sprint? So let's duplicate the view. If I want to see the current sprint, which will not be able to see right now because my current, because we only have sprints in the future. So instead of next year, if I come here and say sprints current, then when the sprint starts, we'll have a new sprint with stars. Let's say I wanted to create an epic, that will have different story. So let's say I want to create a change project management from Jira to GitHub. Ooh, that's thought. I will assign to myself, and I will call this an epic. That will be a battle. If you have, and then I'll add here to the project. If you have the paid version, you can add tasks this year that you can connect it to different tasks in other projects. In the free version, you don't have, but it's okay. We can still do like an example. We can do come here and then add some things like this. And then we can say sharp, let's project. And then if I update comment here, I'll see that I have this story here. Okay. Task list is just a little bit nicer to see this here, but basically this is a way to do. So you can add projects and you see that there's one task here, which are subtasks, right? The task lists are a formatting property, basically, that allows you to better create tasks. I can show you in a paid organization how it looks like, but for now, for this context, we just want to use this like that. So now when I go to my project again, I can click here, see my project. I see there's a story. So I want to add to this view only label story, right? That's something that we wanted to not see other kind of tasks here. The same here, right? Label only stories. And go forward, add those changes here, label story. And normally you would add like other like bugs and all the three kind of things. You just add a comma here, and then you can add like a bug or spike that you can add here. So all these will be okay. Then the same here, and the same here. Right. It sounds strange at the first, but like you would do this only once, right? So it's not something that you do daily. So now we have configured our basic stories, and so we have like a backlog here. We can say like an example, everything, create a view that's everything in backlog. Let's label everything that doesn't have a label, or all these filters, we can create different views. Let's create another filter here for roadmap, which will be only for tasks with the label epic. That's the whole idea, right? The label, and it's an epic. Now we have our epic here. We have to set our date fields with start date here and end date here. Now, if we create a start date here and drag it forward, we'll see that our epic did the start date and date here. Now we name our view epics, and we have our basic setup for running Scrum. Of course, there's much more things that we need to run a completely Scrum, but the basic setup for having a sprint, organize your stories, have epics, and most important, with this setup, your repository here, the story that someone is solving, it's right here. You can tie the code direct to the issue inside GitHub. There's no need to integration with Jira, with anything else. Your team, your development team, will be working completely integrated inside the same tool. There's no need to pay extra license, to pay another tool. There is a learning curve here. I completely understand. But now your team can create a branch directly from here. And then you see here, inside the repository, how the code is solving this problem directly. And when you commit this, you have automations here on your project. Let's go back here and link the project here. See the link here, it'll be easy to see. You can see here the project. See, it's all connected on the same view. It's the same story, you see? There's even like, when we connect it to another issue here, in this case, the epic, it will be all documented here. It's all in one place. It's a single pane of glass to see from the requirements to solution. And of course, in the end, you can have the workflows here to do things like an example, auto add to the project. Like, okay, you wanted to add something automatically to the project. It's easy. You see, if you create an issue or open a bug, a label, oh, that's not something that you want to label. A bug or epic or story or spike. And we are ready. Now, if I go to my repository and let's say I create a new issue, let's say, let's test the automations. Create a new story. Let's label as a story. And then when I do that, it will automatically add to the project. Now, when you see this in the project, you see there, the story is already here. Other automations workflows that you can do is like when items reopen. Okay, that's an example. When an issue or pull request is reopened, you set value to do. That's a good one to do, right? Auto archive. Okay, so if an item is closed more than 2 weeks, archive the item, and so forth. So there's some level of automation that you can do here, but if you have the paid version, you can use GitHub Actions and have so many things. So that's an unscripted way to manage projects in GitHub. I hope you like it. And if you want to know more, just ping me on LinkedIn or anyone on the Avanti Studio team. We are here to help. And if you have any questions or something about this video, let me know in the comments below. And thank you for watching.